first child. You think everything of them when you have them. And now I have the three, and I have 3 grandchildren. They have the same opportunity that's given to me. They have the same opportunities for themselves. The difference is you can leave generational wealth on what a lot of people think about. You can leave that. That's fine. But the main thing is an inheritance that you can't even give to them, but you can tell them about it and tell them how to achieve that inheritance. But the inheritance that you're leaving is temporal. The inheritance that you want to tell them about and educate them about is the inheritance that was left by our forefathers, by the original from Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. The inheritance of eternal life, something that you can just tell them about it. You cannot grant it to them, because just because they hear it don't mean that they're going to abide by it. So you want to make sure that they understand what the inheritance is, temporal and eternal. That's what we want to teach them. Eternal. You want them to have eternal wealth, not temporal. They have the golden ticket. They are the golden child to achieve that. Beautiful thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. But it's up to us to teach them how to achieve that eternal wealth that is given to them. They have the opportunity to get it.
It's a little bit crazy. You're suddenly blurry now. I wonder if anything was real. All our history's hazy, like driving in the pouring rain. Are we in too deep to heal? That you're sorry, we'll make up tomorrow. Tell me everything you know I wanna hear. I'm trying to be open, but that window is closing. And either way, I need to make it clear before we're leaving here.
Mm.
that you're sorry. We'll make up tomorrow. Tell me everything you know I wanna hear. I'm trying to be open, but that window is closing. And either way, I need to make it clear before we're leaving here. Either way, I need to make it clear before we're leaving here.
Yeah, shalom. I got this on. But shalom, everyone. Shalom. I want to welcome everyone to the house of the Lost Sheep of Israel. I'm Elder Michael Johnson, pastor and the overseer here. And we have a straightforward teaching that's going to be going forward today. And we come into a pinnacle to which I want to make sure that we clearly understand what is happening in the world. And a lot of this stuff we have to bring forth to you in different ways and to where we can share this knowledge with you. But I do have a couple of announcements before we go into today's. And I want to make sure that we know what's going on this afternoon. Because we do this afternoon, we have another teaching going forth at 3 o'clock Pacific time, 5 o'clock Central time, and 6 o'clock Eastern time. And it's Fear Not the Sentence of Death, from Understanding of Comprehension of Sirach 41 and 3. That will be this afternoon, this evening for some, at 3 o'clock Pacific time, 5 o'clock Central time, and 6 o'clock Eastern time. We also going to be going forth, and we will be moving on Monday, where we'll be over at King James Bible University. We'll be bringing this forth because it's a lot of people teach the lie of I will build my church, and they want to use I will as a whole. They want to create a lie. They create this big facade for people because a lot of stuff on what is taught over here. So we're going to make sure people get a clear understanding on this. And what I want you to do is make sure, as we always tell you, have your pencil and paper ready. And when you take these notes and you go back to some of the same people who's telling you these same lies, you can question them on that, and you can see where the lie is. Now, we also want to make sure that we see this here that is also coming up is blood batteries. Some people is checking out and seeing this is actually a real occurrence. But the way we have to show you it in different ways, but it's more beneath what you see. It's the same way you look at precepts, the same way you understand spiritual and carnal. You have to look behind what's going on. And that's why I said they are just getting started. They're just really getting started. They're not even cranked up yet. Blood batteries is what we need to make sure we pay attention to. Because it starts right here. BlockChain. And the way this going to be said and the way you're going to see it, please make sure you understand. And many people, I know some people read in the description on what we have written out. but I want you to pay close attention on what's going to go forth today. I want you to clearly understand what's going to go forth today is going to unlock a lot of things for you. It's not just for you, but it's going to unlock a lot of things for even your loved ones. And you can even understand them if the need arise. BlockChain. And I'm going to introduce you to BlockChain and actually how they broke it. Many people believe that this is something that is new. Excuse me. They think this is something that is 100% new within the last few years. But BlockChain been here for years. It's been here since the beginning of time. Excuse me. It's the concept on what they're using. The concept is blockchain. That's what they want to use. And we're going to find out what's happening with blockchain, because they use this and they push it another way. But blockchain is what the world uses, which if you understand blockchain, each block contains information. And the craziest thing about blockchain, most people don't know, but people who is familiar with it, they'll tell you, the first block in the chain is called Genesis. The first block. So we're going to dig into this. We're going to see what's going on here. So when you look at this in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, as he said, and then when you go check and you go start looking at blockchain and start trying to understand what the world is doing, you gotta look past that. Look what's going on behind it. What's happening behind it is what you need to be watching for, because that's the dangerous side. So when we look at this, it says, in the beginning, God created something he already did, created the heaven and the earth. So the creator created heaven and earth, and then they want to use this as blockchain. And when you want to look at the differences between the two, they're using blockchain, but we call them precepts. So I'm going to explain this to you. So let me explain in where we can get understanding on what this is happening. Because blockchain is telling us something that is quite different. The information that you see within the block stores information. And I want you to make sure you write a lot of this down, because with blockchain, we're going to be paralleling this to where you can really see and understand what is going on. Each block contains detailed information, each one. And it tells you about transactions and dates and times. And you see the cost of the latest transaction. And it's linked within a block, which has a via, like a public key. The same thing what they use within precepts. So we know they mimicking. I want you to look at Ecclesiastes chapter 3. We're going to pick it up at verse 1. We're going to pick this up right here at verse 1. Let me see, I got it. 3 verse 1. I want you to pay attention on what's getting ready to happen here. It says, to everything there is a season. We're going to find out what this is, including a time to every purpose under heaven. Every purpose under heaven is what we're getting ready to find out. Because everything is broke down as it says. A season. We're going to find out what this finds. We're going to find out exactly what all this is. So let's look at this and we're going to dig into it. And the party starts here. So in the season, within the season, and I'm going to explain all what this is. So when you look at this here, it's a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up that which is planted. So when we look at seasons, seasons falls under, and I want to make sure that you write all this down. Seasons falls under length, past, present, and afterwards. That's the season. All of it's contained within that block, that season. Also contain, you'll see, with time, because time is structured a little bit different, but it's one of the same. So season, we see within that block, it falls and contained within that same information. We know it has a length, we know it has a past, we know it has a present, we know it has an afterward, inside of the block. The time, it consists of a same in the time of length. So it adds the length of the past, it adds the length of the present, it adds the length of the afterwards of the future. We have to really pay attention to why they're using it in this way, because this is something that's used from God. And within this time, it's a purpose. That's why he's telling us that right up there. It's a purpose. Every purpose under heaven, it has a purpose. Everything you see, everything you hear, everything you touch, even you think in the past and now in the future, and the purpose is all based on the season. The length, the past, the present, and afterwards. And under heaven, you can see these seasons go to work. I want you to stay closely with me, because I don't want nobody to get past this who's here. We have to look at the example on what's going on, because some things I didn't explain until we're going to get to them, to where we can all walk together. Well, I want all of us to walk together as we go through this. So I want you to pay close attention and write them down. And it's in a time to be born. I want you to pay attention to that. Pay close attention to that. Why? Because born, I'm going to tell you what it is. We use it all the time. It's begotten. Begotten. But then when you look at the functioning behind begotten, is one willing to serve. So you're either going to be serving God or you're going to be serving Satan. I want you to stay with me. The concept of BlockChain, that is unbreakable to them unless they create their own blocks. Everybody with me? If they create their own blocks, they got their own blockchain. And when you see this in Psalms chapter 89, and you see this here, I need to use the other one. Let me see. When you see Psalms 89:34, based on the block, and I see this, I must have hit the highlighter. Yeah, I didn't. So let me highlight this here. Psalms 89:34. My covenant will I not break, coming from the Most High God, nor alter the thing that is gone out of my lips. Now, with this we know God cannot change nothing within the block. You with me? He can't change anything within this block. So everything that's in heaven, it falls under one of those categories, is based on what was done in the past and how we are going to see this from the future. But you have some people who want to make a change in those blocks of the Bible. Everybody with me? I want you to stay with me. If somebody's getting lost, if you put in there you're getting lost, because I don't want you to get lost. I want you to make sure you clearly understand what's happening. And with many of us going to serve in the present, and some are going to serve afterwards. Meaning this, and when you look at Luke chapter 16, and we look at verse 13, and you see right here, because you're going to serve one. One is you going to serve. We look at Luke 16, verse 13. It tells us, no servant can serve two masters. You cannot serve two masters. Either you're going to hate one and love the other, or else he's going to hold to one and despise the other. He cannot serve God and mammon. You can't do it. You cannot do this. So I need to elaborate and make sure we get this. And as we going through and we picking up the pieces and making sure everybody with me, we are working in the past and the length of the serpent of the flesh, and then you got the present, and you got afterwards and looking to serve God. So either you're going to be born, you're going to be begotten, born, and you're willing to serve. Either you're going to do that, including within that same time, that same block, the same thing. It says a time to be born and a time to die. And we know that it's going to happen. The time we're going to die. So if we're going to die, we have to mortify these bodies. We have to mortify them. And I want you to stay 100% with me as we go through this. So we have to do something with these bodies that we're in right now. Let's go a little bit closer with this. We're going to take this a little bit closer. We're going to go to Second Idris. We're going to go over here to Uncle, and we're going to let Uncle Idris explain and elaborate this for us. We're going to find this in Second Idris, and we're going to pick this up at chapter 8. When we look at chapter 8, we're going to go down to verse 8. And we're going to let Uncle Idris elaborate on what he wants us to know, that he penned for us through the Spirit of God. It says, for when our bodies is fashioned, now in the mother's womb, including thou givest it members, thy creature is preserved in desire and knowledge. We preserved in desire and knowledge. Including 9 months doeth thy workmanship endure, thy creature which is created in her. Now, he just didn't use 1 month. And actually, I want to show you that to where there's no complication, because he want to talk about where it's complete conception and you know you're pregnant. But we all know that there's no contradiction in the Bible. So when you look at Wisdom of Solomon 7:2, the wisest man to ever live, he tell you, see, from the date of conception, it's 10 months. He tells you that here. It says, in my mother's womb was I fashioned and to be flesh in a time of 10 months. See, in the time of 10 months, as soon as that conception happened, it happened. That's within a 10-month time span. And after that month, now you're going to start being compacted in blood and the seed of man. And the pleasure that came with sleep, the creature preserved in fire and water and desires and knowledge. And in 9 months doeth the workmanship endureth thy creature, which is created in her. This we know. This we understand and a lot more. But we need to go down a little more. We have to go down a little more. In verse 9, we look at this over in Uncle Idris, and we're going to come back. He says, but that which keepeth, including is kept, shall both be preserved, including the time cometh. The womb preserveth, delivereth up the things that grew in it. So the same as the woman body, no matter what, when it's the time for it to be delivered, it's going to come. I don't care what we do. It's going to come. There's nothing she can do to stop this. But it gets better. Verse 10. It says, for thou hast commanded out of the part of the body, that is to say, out of the breast milk to be given, which is the fruit of the breast. That the thing which is fashioned, that was in her, may be nourished a time for a season. That may be nourished for a season, for a time, till thou disposes of thy mercy. See, we want to understand certain things. It exposes. Now, it's actually written 3 different ways in the Bible, but this one here is telling you to it's placed in our mercy. Is what it's talking about. And to it is placed in our mercy. But what is it really getting into? We got to find out. Because it's a season that we're going to run into this. Verse 12 is going to get into a little bit more to help clear up a lot of this for us. It says, thou broughtest it up with thy righteousness, and nourished it in the law, and reformeth it with thy doctrines and teachings. So we getting closer with this. We're getting a lot closer with this, because now we're finding out that the law, the doctrine, and the judgments of God, we following the structure and the foundation on the blockchain that is talking about in the Bible, but you're going to see in a little while they're moving it outside. Got to find this out. Verse 13, it tells us this, that thou shalt mortify it as thy creature, and quicken it as thy work. So we have to mortify the creature. Are you with me? We have to mortify this creature. The creature, which is a lot of us, some of us know and some of us don't know. But if you don't know, you're going to know. And we look at this in 2nd Ecclesiastes chapter 6, but we got to go down to verse 49. We want to find out what this is talking about to get the understanding, because we have to mortify that is as thy creature. We have to mortify that thing. We have to. Each one of us have one. If we came through a woman, each one of us have one. And we'll look at this in verse 649 of 2nd Ecclesiastes. It's telling us here, it says, thou ordained 2 living creatures. 2. And one of the creatures is called Enoch. Knowing the difference, but one of the creatures is called Enoch. Including the other. So the other creature is called Leviathan. We have to mortify the creature. But the one we want to mortify, the choice is yours. It tells us a little bit more information as we go through it. Because you see it says if. So we know that's providing. So it's up to you on what you're going to do. So providing for that reason, thou shalt destroy him which with so great labors was fashioned. It is an easy thing to be ordained by the commandment that the thing which was made might be preserved. I know that threw a lot of people for a lot of loops. But we got to work everything out. That's why we're trying to take our time. So if we destroy that which was fashioned in our mother's womb, that was great within itself, then we, knowing it is easy to ordain the following through with the doctrine and the teachings of God. The key is to not to make a change of the structure of the block. That's the key. Don't change the structure of the blockchain, because it's information contained within the block that cannot be changed. But it says more in verse 2 of Ecclesiastes. Because he said a couple of things, because we got die, and that was a fourth thought. He said a time to plant and a time to pluck up, which is planted. So we want to understand planting and all that. In the plant is talking about, so he going to plant. So as it said, it's a time to establish and strengthen within the season. And what we said seasons were? Length and past and present and afterwards. And then it's a time to pluck up that which is planted. So once it's established, you can pluck it up. You with me? I want you to stay with me on this. Because once we start getting down into this, it's gonna be a jungle, and I want to make sure we all can go through the jungle together. As we get down in verse 3, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down, a time to build up. Again, we know it's a time. So we know that season is there. We know that season is there. So I see people as good. So I can keep digging down and do what we need to do. You already said, I'm good. I'm good. We're going to bring you. We're going to walk together with this one. And with that, when you see this time, this length and present and past and afterwards, and he's telling us right there, it's a time to kill. So it's a time to destroy and a time to heal, to make whole. It's a time to make whole, a time to break it down. Excuse me. So even as we see, when you go down into bondage, we're going to tell you what, better yet, I want to show you one with Joseph. I want to show you one with Joseph. We're going to look over here at Genesis. Genesis, I believe we need it over here in 46. Yes, we need it 44. 46:4. That's the one we need. Genesis chapter 46 and 4. As it's telling us, and it's written, I will go down with thee into Egypt. God is going to go down there to Egypt with him, and I will also surely bring thee up again, including Joseph shall put his hand upon thy understanding. It's a time to kill and a time to heal. But as we understand in this, we're getting a little bit more, and we're going to find out a few other things here. A time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance. We have a couple of problems here, because a lot of people sit there and see this differently. The reason I say that is, when we look at those, we're looking at dance and laugh, and people look at those as something that is good. Something that is good. And as I said, the time to weep is to mourn. Did you know that the mourn and laugh is kind of almost running side by side? Because laugh is a sign of mockery, scorn, and the thing that where they used it for sport. Laughing is always in the Bible showing you as a mockery or used for sport. In fact, we're gonna pull some, and we'll go over here to Sirach. I just want to make sure we clearly understand together. What is happening? We're going to find that in Sirach chapter 30, verse 10. As the scripture says, laugh not with him, lest thou have sorrow with him, and lest thou gash thy teeth in the end. To show you, to prove why he's saying that, is this. Because we're going to see something that many people always find kind of hard to take from the Most High. But as he said, he's going to do this. In Proverbs chapter 1, we're going to pick this up at verse 26. And it's saying this to make sure we're clear. Because when we don't listen, he says, I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. The mock is a sign of laughter at you, mocking you. It's not a sign of joyfulness. Laughter is a sign of mocking. This chain can't be broken, this blockchain. The past, the present, and afterwards. Because within the same season, we know it has a length, the past, the present, and afterwards. So the time, and then it's saying the same thing with time to dance. Because dance is where you can express joy and things like a joyfulness. That's where that is. Time to dance. And when we see that time to dance, that is joy. That's the expression of joy. Verse 5, it goes on more. It goes on more. It says a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. All within the precepts, all within they try to make in the blockchain. Because the stones, stones, as he's saying, is a cast away stone. Stones is a belief in pillars. So with the belief in pillars we know can be elders and strong people within a church. And so it says a time to embrace and time to cast away stones. So it's a time to get rid of those old pastors that you done learned all this silliness from and get rid of it. And then it's a time to gather them up to where you gather up the beliefs and the pillars that you see that is teaching you of the truth. It's telling you this right here. It's a time to embrace and time to refrain from embracing. Embracing just means to gather. The same way why he's telling you, when you embracing something, it's a time to embrace that, to gather them. And you gather them into one spot. In fact, Uncle Idris, he can actually tear this down for you. Because I will go to the New Testament, but I'm not. Because the New Testament actually got it from Idris. So we're going to look at 2nd Idris, because Yahweh actually says this. But I'm going to go into the Old Testament. I'm going to go right here into Uncle Idris, where they say, Yahweh don't quote from me. But you're going to see right here, he quotes from Uncle Idris. In 2nd Idris chapter 1, verse 30. The same as he's saying, it's time to embrace and a time to refrain from embrace. So it's a time to gather and a time to refrain from it. It says, I gather you together as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings. But now, what shall I do unto you? I will cast you out from my face. It's the same thing as telling you right there. In Ecclesiastes, Uncle Idris uses it. Yahweh uses it. He uses the same identical understanding. because it's a time to gather and it's a time to refrain from it. It's a time to cast away things. We see this even better in verse 6. As it's telling, it's a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep, a time to cast away. It's a time, it's a season. Present, past, afterwards. BlockChain. It's a method that must be followed perfectly. Saying this, and we're trying to make sure we're going to get all this together. I'm going to show you over here in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11, and we'll find a little bit more. BlockChain works this way. When I was a child, I spake as a child. When I was a child, I spake as a child. My true understanding of what I wanted to see was of a child. I wanted that G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip. Me and my brother, we wanted those BB guns. We wanted child things. We wanted the bikes, things as such. We spake as a child, we understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. But this is the problem. That's the whole thing. This is where the problem is. And I'm going to show you this problem and show you why so many people, even today, is still caught up over there. It's still caught up over there. And most people don't even know they are. We'll look at this in Hebrews chapter 5, verse 13. For everyone that uses milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. People would say that, well, I get meat over here, I get meat over there. No, you don't. No, you don't. You hear about lions and tigers and bears getting on a boat. You hear about IFOs, which is silliness within itself. And then had a nerve to sit there to say, you getting meat. You speak as a child, you think as a child. You understood as a child. You still on milk and don't know it. And then that's why most people still within the blockchain breaks. Because that's what we come into. And it's telling you right here, when you look at verse 6. But strong meat belongeth to them that is full of age, even those who by reason of use their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. That's what they're capable of doing. Not talking about some IFO, some identified flying objects. Meaning spaceships made of God. God things are eternal, things that is unseen. But then they'll tell you these things, you can see them, and people believe it. This is why we get in so much silliness. Because things is being as a child. But it's within the blockchain. We got to see how that's working. See, that blockchain is there for a reason. Because the main thing is, within that same blockchain, you have a lot of people was fed the lie where you had snakes walking on two legs. You had animals getting on a boat. It's like a fairy tale. As he's telling you right here in verse 7. A time to rent, a time to sow, a time to keep silent, a time to speak. Exactly the point. A time to rent is to separate for that season, time to sow. Actually, which he explains here. Actually, I'm going to go here because I'm going to show you what it explains. Cause I wasn't going to go here, but I'm going to go ahead and go there. Because I want to make sure we clearly get this as we go through here. We're going to go to 1 Timothy chapter 6. We're going to pick this up at verse 3. And I'm going to show you. Providing any man teach otherwise, including not in consent not to wholesome words, even the words of our Creator of salvation, the Anointed One, including the doctrine which is according to godliness, not talking about all this craziness. He is proud, knowing nothing, but doting about questions and strife and of words, whereof cometh envy, strife, railings, evil submersions, perverse disputings of men in corrupt minds, including destitute of the truth, supposing that gain is godliness. Supposing gain is godliness. From such, withdraw thyself, but a lot of us don't. We stay tied up with it. But it says from such you withdraw from it. But many people stay tied to it. So it's a time to be silent, a time to speak. I'm telling you that. Time to keep silent and a time to speak. And you have some guys who, they go to these camps, and these camps have a 12-week program on how to know God in 12 weeks. It almost sounds like you're trying to kick the habit on something. A 12-step program. In this season, it's telling you what it is. The same we see in verse 8. It says a time to love and a time to hate. Why is that there? See, and people even tell you that God don't hate nobody. God can't hate nobody. Really? It's telling you right here. It's a season for it. It's done for a season. In fact, make sure we prove the point. We got to prove the point on what's happening here in Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 16. Hebrews 12 verse 16. And he's going to tell you exactly what he think about this same guy. It says, lest there be any fornicator or profane person comparing Esau. If anyone is like Esau, acting like Esau, and there's a lot of people out there, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. A ton of them is doing this. A ton of people is doing this right here. For one morsel of meat. It says, for ye know that afterwards he would have inherited the blessing. He was rejected. But he found no place for remembrance, though he sought it carefully with tears. What you seeking it for tears for? Tears don't work. Tears don't work. Chasing all types of doctrine. This is the irritating part. They'll chase all types of doctrine. Fornicators. Even though after you would have got the blessing. But people want to go everywhere and get this doctrine and get that doctrine, get this doctrine. I need some of that doctrine. I need to go get a little bit of this doctrine here. I'm going to get some of that doctrine over there. You're a fornicator. And people don't understand that. You see this even in Genesis, and we'll see the difference between him and his brother. Genesis 28 is recorded in verse 20. Jacob vowed a vow in Genesis 28:20. He vowed a vow saying, providing God will be with me and keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread, that meat to eat, and raiment to put on and cover me. He's telling you right up front. This is Jacob. He said, so that I come again to my father's house in peace. Then shall the Spirit of God be my guide. He's clear. But some people, it's going to be fornicators, profane. We're going to chase all kinds of winds of doctrine. People like to mix doctrine. That's why I tell people all the time, you with a camp, go back to the camp. If you want to try to mix camp doctrine with this doctrine, no, go back to where you came from. I'm real simple with that. If you tied up and you want to mix Christian doctrine with this doctrine here, go back where you came from. We're not here to play games. We're not here to try to blend doctrines with something that you believe over there that you want to bring into the Bible. No, you go back where you got it from. It's that simple. It's that simple. Because a lot of people always look and they want to join up and do all these crazy things. And same thing like he said, it's a time to love and a time to hate. And the same thing like we were just bringing up with Esau. You see in verse 2, it says, I have loved you, saith the Spirit of God, yet ye say, wherein have thou loved us? He says, was not Esau Jacob's brother? Yeah, it was twins. It was twins. He said, was not Esau Jacob's brother, said the Spirit of God, yet I love Jacob, including I hated Esau? Are you seeing this? Because he's telling us it's two creatures. We have to mortify one. We have to mortify one. And if we don't mortify it, that one is going to take over everything. And most of us already have let us take it over. In Galatians chapter 5, verse 17, helps us out a little bit. It says, the flesh lusteth against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh. But you don't hear the spirit is lusting against the flesh. No, the flesh lusteth against the spirit, but the spirit against the flesh. You see, lust ain't there. But it goes on more. It says, and these are contrary to the one to the other, so that they cannot do the things that they would. One has to die. One has to be mortified. One has to be mortified. So the question becomes is this. In verse 9. The question is this. Right here in verse 9. It says, what profit hath he that worketh in that wherein he laboreth? So where is it? Where's your profit? This is something you need to think about. Because as I said, the question becomes, you're working towards something. And you following rules of the book, which is the BlockChain. You're going to follow the BlockChain of the flesh, or you're going to follow the BlockChain of God? Or you're going to be seeking, and most people are going to seek and they're going to pave their way, which is men. Breaking the BlockChain. So I'm going to expose you to something that I used to speak about quite a bit. Quite a bit. And I'm going to expose you to methodology. Because it's a methodology approach on when you deal with the Bible. And I done said this many times. And we need to make sure we clearly get what's going on. Because methodology is a collection. It's an approach that is employed based on a specific sector or study or work. That's what I do. And we even had people. And we just had one not too long ago. Just past week. They sit there and they put the most idiotic thing on there. They say, well, I'll tell you what, I don't see in the Bible where it says Master Hebraeus. Most people don't know, and I done said it time and time and time and time again. It's a profession on a work. I am a researcher by profession of Hebraic studies. But they so stupid. And see, and there's no other way I can say it. Same as that dumb Henry Stevenson guy with them Churches of Christ people. Same thing. They think it's a doctrine. It's a profession. And it's a method that guides me to the judgment by an organized schema based on the values within the Bible only. And when you see that, it's called, when you look at it, it's called like a contextual framework for research, the methodologies. And within that same methodologies, within the same contextual framework, it uses the Bible precepts. And I will collect the methodologies, the norms, the prepositions employed by the disciplines and employed the topics within the Bible. So with that, I uses the precepts, which is the standard of operating the procedure of all the biblical guidelines that I have to do. It's common sense. Common sense thing. But people want to use blockchains. So what we end up coming to is precepts versus theology. Precepts versus theology. See, theology is men that created their own blockchains, which we were speaking of, which I've been trying to tie into what we're doing. Including much of the world also favor blockchain of that. Why? Because you see apologetics, which is craziness within itself. Craziness. And they use these systematic dogmas, but they all use theology, which they broke the chain. Which they have broke the chain. They use these things called angelology and bibliology and Christology, and I'm going to show you some videos of this. That's why I said we're going to take the time, because I want you to see this yourself, to see that this is not a game. They dead serious about what they're doing. So let me bring this up. I want to show you a couple of videos. I want you just to bear with me on this. And I'm going to show you this right here, and I'm going to bring the first one up. And I want you to see what's going on here. And I want to make sure I have the different ones. But this one is based on Ecclesiology, whatever they got here. And they're going to explain it. They're going to explain this here. And you'll see it.
Ecclesiology usually now refers to the theological study of the Christian Church. The word was an English neologism of the later 1830s, however, and, within a few years, it was defined as the science of the building and decoration of church buildings. It may still be used in this sense. In its theological sense, ecclesiology deals with the origins of Christianity, its relationship to Jesus, its role in salvation, its polity, its discipline, its destiny, and its leadership. Since different ecclesiologies give shape to very different institutions, The word may also refer to a particular church or denomination's character, self-described or otherwise, hence phrases such as Roman Catholic ecclesiology, Lutheran ecclesiology, and ecumenical ecclesiology.
Now, just to let you guys know, if you look down there, you see this is Autopedia, which they have like 900,000. They almost got 1 million subscribers. But this is still tying all to what his Christian doctrine is. So I'm gonna show you each one of them. And this is another doctrine that they use. And they got all these different names. So I'm just gonna play them.
Eschatological verification describes a process whereby a proposition can be verified after death. A proposition such as there is an afterlife is verifiable if true, but not falsifiable if false. If it's false, the individual will not know it's false, because they have no state of being. The term is most commonly used in relation to God of the afterlife, although there may be other propositions such as moral propositions which may also be verified after death. John Hick has expressed the premise as an allegory of a quest to a celestial city. In this parable, a theist and an atheist are both walking down the same road. The theist believes there is a destination, the atheist believes there is not. If they reach the destination, the theist will have been proven right. However, if there is no destination on an endless road, this can never be verified. This is an attempt to explain how a theist expects some form of life or existence after death and an atheist does not. They both have separate belief systems and live life accordingly, but logically one is right and the other is not. If the theist is right, he will be proven so when he arrives in the afterlife. However, if the atheist is right, they will simply both be dead and nothing will be verified. This acts as a response to verificationism. Under Hick's analogy, claims about the afterlife are verifiable in principle because the truth becomes clear after death. To some extent it is therefore wrong to claim that religious language cannot be verified because it can when you're dead.
Okay, this is just showing you what is going on. And and all these are Christian doctrines. So that's what I wanted to make sure that you guys really pay attention to. These are Christian doctrines. And I might not play them all because it's 3 more after this one. So I might not play them all.
Hamartiology, a branch of Christian theology, studies sin. Substantial branches of hamartiological understanding, including Roman Catholic, Presbyterian, Continental Reformed, and Reformed Baptists, subscribe to the doctrine of original sin, which the Apostle Paul espouses in Romans 5:12-19, and which Augustine of Hippo popularized in the West and developed into a notion of hereditary guilt. The North African bishop taught that God holds all the descendants of Adam and Eve accountable for Adam's sin of rebellion, and as such all people deserve God's wrath and condemnation, apart from any actual sins they personally commit. In contrast, a view sometimes ascribed to Pelagius states that humans enter life as moral blank slates, tabula rasa, responsible for their own moral nature. The fall that occurred when Adam and Eve disobeyed God, according to Pelagianism, affected humankind only minimally as it established a negative moral precedent. Few contemporary theologians, especially thinkers in Augustinian traditions, and no Orthodox theologians, however, continue to hold this hamartiological viewpoint. A third branch of thinking takes an intermediate position, asserting that since the fall the sin of Adam has naturally affected human beings such that they have inborn tendencies to rebel against God, in which rebellion by personal choice all accountable humans, except Jesus, will choose or have chosen to indulge. This is a hamartiological position of the Eastern Christian churches, often called ancestral sin as opposed to original sin, but it is sometimes viewed as semi-Pelagian in the West, especially by the Reformed. How individual Christians believe that either literal or metaphorical fall has impacted humanity typically forms the foundation for their views on related theological concepts such as salvation, justification, and sanctification.
So this is another one. And this I'm talking about, it's crazy as we're going through it. And this is constructive theology. Constructive theology on what they're doing here. This is another one.
Constructive theology is the redefinition of what has historically been known as systematic theology. The reason for this reevaluation stems from the idea that, in systematic theology, the theologian attempts to develop a coherent theory running through the various doctrines within the tradition: Christology, Eschatology, Pneumatology, etc. The potential problem underlying such study is that in constructing the system of theology, certain elements may be left out or forced in order to maintain the coherence of the overall system. In response to this realization, some theologians, Salima Kerpegu, Catherine Feller, and Sharon V. Better, feel that the term systematic is no longer accurate in reference to theology, and prefer the language of constructive theology. While not a proponent of the language of constructive theology, Karl Barth frequently criticized the practice of systematizing theology or structuring the coherent system upon a philosophical foundation external to theology's own internal commitments. Constructive Theology is also the title of a journal on the subject. A Bloomsbury book series on constructive theology, Rethinking Theologies, Constructing Alternatives, is edited by Marion Proud, Susanna Cornwall, Steve Davidson, and Pyle Dong Lee.
And I know one of them is kind of long. This one, Christian theology, and I know we have the dogma. Yeah, that one is like 4 minutes. I think I just kill you with this one, and then we'll move forward.
Christian theology is the study of Christian belief and practice. Such study concentrates primarily upon the texts of the Old Testament and the New Testament, as well as on Christian tradition. Christian theologians use biblical exegesis, rational analysis, and argument. Theology might be undertaken to help the theologian better understand Christian tenets, to make comparisons between Christianity and other traditions, to defend Christianity against objections and criticism, to facilitate reforms in the Christian church, to assist in the propagation of Christianity, to draw on the resources of the Christian tradition to address some present situation or need, or for a variety of other reasons. Systematic theology as a discipline of Christian theology formulates an orderly, rational, and coherent account of the Christian faith and beliefs. Systematic theology draws on the foundational sacred texts of Christianity, while simultaneously investigating the development of Christian doctrine over the course of history, particularly through philosophical evolution. Inherent to a system of theological thought is that a method is developed, one which can be applied both broadly and particularly. Systematic theology will typically explore God, theology proper, the attributes of God, the Trinity as espoused by Trinitarian Christians, revelation, biblical hermeneutics, the creation, divine providence, theodicy, anthropology, hamartiology, Christology, pneumatology, soteriology, ecclesiology, missiology, spirituality and mysticism, sacramental theology, eschatology, moral theology, the afterlife, and the Christian understanding of other religious systems and philosophies. Christian theology has permeated much of Western culture, especially in pre-modern Europe.
So this is pretty much what's going on, but there's a lot of other ones there. So they have quite a few what people really need to see on how they actually work. But to get a better understanding on all of it is what is going on. So when we're looking at this here, this is their blockchain. This is the blockchain here. And you'll see where Christian theology is broken down here. So you can sit there and see here, well, let me make sure. So when you sit there, you'll see this, and you see the eschatology, you see all this stuff here. And it's telling you all what it's about. All this is Christian theology. You see Christian apologetics. You see Christology, which some of the stuff that she brought up. They use the hermeneutics. They use angelology, which it tells you even here. And it's a Christianity based on angels and agents and stuff like that. She brought up same as you see as Christian proper. You'll see that there. You'll see theological anthropology. You see what they use as Bible commentaries and stuff as such. These things is all used in Christian apologetics. And all this, and this is why so many people, you'll go through 45,000 plus different types of denomination of Christian religion. The reason you have that problem and the reason people have differences is based on that alone. Is based on that alone. This is what we run into. The reason we run into that is because we have these ships. And I want to move that back down here. But we have these ships. And these ships is based on these Christian doctrines, these places that uses it. And you'll see the Reformed Church. This is Reformed Christian churches. And you'll see the listing of those. You'll see the listing of these. These are Protestant churches. You see the non-denominational Christian church, and some of them I was able to get the numbers of them. Non-denominational Christianity, they 80 to 100 million. They have these other denominations, minor denominationals, 4.4 million of these. You have the Protestantism, 280 million. These are all Christian religion churches, and they using this 280 million of those. You have the Chinese Patriarch. You have the Orthodox. I'm talking about you had the Eastern. You had the Apostolic. You have the Romans. I'm talking about you name it, they're here. You name it, they're here. All of them uses those doctrines that you seen up at the top. The same videos I showed you. The Reformed Christians, they use them. It was another one I was trying to use. I believe. See, they have so many. Let me see. Is that one? It was one particular one I was trying to find. Because they say they're not tied to it, but they actually are. And if I can find them, because there's so many different ones. And I should be able to find them here. Give me 1 second. But you can also see a lot of your churches that you might have been tied to yourself. You'll see them, they all are here. Everybody is here in every denomination that is out there. And actually, this is the one. The non-Trinitarian Restoration Christian churches. That's the one I was trying to show you. And actually, I want to move that one up. I want you to see what's going on there. And the reason why, let me can't move it. But actually, I'll tell you what, I can move it. I can do it that way. And where is it? There we go. These here. That's them right there. The reason why I want you to see that there, because you had certain churches saying that what they're not tied to. Certain churches saying what they wasn't tied to. And you'll see right here where it's 35 million, these non-Trinitarians. But you'll see the non-Trinitarians is your Community of Christ, your Jehovah's Witnesses, and your Oneness Pentecostalism, your United Pentecostalism, your Latter-day Saints movement, those up there, who actually is the creators of the Churches of Christ, that's the black churches, which is dominant. That's out here. And they part of this. And they all click together. So what this mean is, if you go into one of those churches, so same thing like if you have a Church of Christ and you went into a Jehovah's Witness, you'll find a lot of things there in their doctrine you will actually agree with. The same as the Oneness, the same as the Pentecostals, the Latter-day Saints, they'll agree with it. Now, they will tell you they don't, but if you listen to what they say, they're going to talk the same identical language. Identical language. And you have some men might just try to say different, but you can see here, this is what we have. This is what we have here. You have all these here, and those are just there. These are just here. So you can't get around them. You cannot get around them. You can't go anywhere from them. And this is what we constantly deal with. So people will tell you, they don't deal with this church or they don't deal with that church. But all of them are one and the same. All of them deal with a bunch of different doctrines. And when you sit there and you look at that and you want to go through what's being used, you want to clearly understand what's going on there. And then when you go back to the Bible and what's supposed to be used, we'll look at it in another way. So the same thing here. You look at the King James Bible, and what you do when you just want to look at Bible, it tell you, it's saying right here, you see right there, it tells you about the King James Bible, the prophet writers. You have the Apocrypha. It shows you all the books that's in there. Now you have people tell you. Actually, let me put this on rotation the way I can move it up. And you have people tell you, oh, you have these crazy books in there. And you don't. You have 1st, 2nd Esdras, Tobit, Judith, the editions of Esther, and Wisdom of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, Baruch, the letter of Jeremiah, prayer of Azariah, Susanna, the Bell and the Dragon, which tells you the rest about Daniel, the prayer of Manasseh, 1st and 2nd Maccabees. That's it. But the problem is, they tell you about, they'll try to add the book of Jubilees, the book of Enoch, the book of Jasher. They'll try to add all these other books to it. That's craziness, and that's not the truth. Same thing is, you have the New Testament. The same thing. You have Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, 1st, 2nd Corinthians. You go right down to Revelation. And you go here. You have the Old Testament. Same thing. You have Genesis, Exodus. These are all the books in the Bible. Now, the reason I put the book I actually did, I put this Precept Study Bible there. This don't have nothing to do with technically what's going on, but this is just for comprehension base. That's why I have that there. And it just can tell you what things mean. I'm not trying to change the word whatsoever. So when you look at this, that's all you see is the King James Bible and what's going on. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. But you don't see all the confusion. You don't see the confusion there. This is why it's so important. Again, why people sit there and they'll tell you different things. And they try to get you tied up into a lot of craziness. They'll tie you up in all kinds of craziness. And this is where our problem becomes. So I want you to keep in mind, this structure here. Never forget this, and always remember this here. And this is why I want you to keep all that in mind, what we just showed you with those Christian religions. Because you can't get around it. Because they're there. And they cannot once say they don't use one of those methods. Because they use them. In Isaiah chapter 34, verse 16. Verse 16. It says this. It says, seek ye out of the book of the Spirit of God and read. No one of these shall fail, none shall want her mate. For my mouth have I commanded, and his spirit has he gathered them. You know exactly what's going on here. Exactly what is going on here. And you see why when people have taken things and we follow in that structure, we can't move around the structure. So when you sit there and you follow the structure, and what they've done is what they did, they adjusted the structure. You'll see this in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 2. It says, ye shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall you diminish out from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Spirit of your God, which I commanded you. We see this structure here. This is the structure that we cannot remove. Because we move it, we break the chain. Actually, let me go over here and we're going to pull a little bit more. We cannot break the chain. But has the chain been broken? And they put another one in place. In Revelation chapter 22, verse 18, speaks on this even more at the end of the book. It says, for I testify unto every man, man or woman, I'll testify to every man or woman, that hears the word of the prophecy of this book, the King James Bible, which include the Old, the Apocrypha, and New Testament. The prophecy of this book. If any man shall add unto these things, God shall add unto them the plagues that is written in this book. That are written in this book. Verse 19. Including providing any man should take away from the words of the book of this prophecy. They removed the entire Apocrypha of the BlockChain. And then they put other little blocks in. Because right now, most people running around with 66 books. The blocks was taken out of their chain. And they took away, and it says, God shall take away his part out of the book of life, and out of the holy city, and from the things which are written in this book. The reason why this is so important, because you still have people, they're going to always sit there, and they're going to talk, oh, well, no, we don't use this, and men said that, and this not canon. they say all this craziness. Oh, this not canon, that's not canon, so it's not God inspired. So now they telling God what's inspired, what's not. See, and to me, I have my own personal views on that. Because hell, they should be. And hell, they must go to me. That's why I said I couldn't have been Moses. Couldn't have been there. Because me, okay, take them out. Because some people, they want to hold on to false doctrine so strongly. Then why keep playing with them? See, that's me. But it tells you in 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 16, it says, all scripture is given by inspiration of God, including is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness. But now you have men even today telling you that the King James Bible do not include the Apocrypha. Do not include the Apocrypha. So what sense do that make? What sense do that make? It makes no absolute sense whatsoever. Because the Bible has always been based on precepts. Never been based on exegesis, hermeneutics, all this craziness. Then you got angelology. You name it, you've seen it. The BlockChain. And it contains specific information within the first block, which is called the Genesis block. We already went through this. And the reason why we want to make sure we understand that is where we're going to continually run through and why we have the problem. In Isaiah chapter 28, for precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, full thought. Full thought right there. Precept must be upon precept. But people sit there and I'm going to exegete, I'm going to perform hermeneutics, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go look at eschatology, I'm going to go look at angelology, all this crazy doctrines. Precept must be upon precept. Precept upon precept, line upon line upon line, here a little, there a little. So why in the world they going after all these other doctrines? He said this and he made sure he was clear the entire time. In Psalms 89:34, we're going to go back and look at it and make sure that we clearly got it the first time and why did they change it. In Psalms 89:34, my covenant will I not break, nor alter the thing that has gone on my lips. So how did all these other doctrines come up? It's not changing nothing. It's not altering anything. Every prophet wrote some part of that book. In prophet, just to make sure we clearly get this. And this is where another problem, where so many people have so many problems. And that's irritating within itself. Prophet means you being a mouth. A mouth. M-O-U-T-H. That's what you are. Either you're going to be the mouth of Satan, you're going to be the mouth of God. When you have some people lying, saying they the mouth of God, well, the Lord said y'all need to give everybody $150 into the thing, and God saying he going to richly bless you. Somebody out there, God told me to tell. No, that's a bold-faced lie. Bold-faced lie. God ain't said not one of these men that doing that kind of foolish doctrines. But we'll sit there and we'll support it. We'll support people like that. Because they have to be a person of God. Why? Because they told you something that was pretty good. Your tickling ears kind of got you. Many people going to buzz hell, deservingly so, for the doctrines that they sit under. Because they believe in something that they cannot see in Scripture that God said. is craziness. In Zechariah chapter 8, looking at verse 9, he goes on here. He said, thus said the Spirit of God of hosts, let your hands be strong yet, that here in those days, these words by my mouth, by his mouth of the prophets, hear the words by the mouth of the prophets, which were in the day of the foundation of the house of the Spirit of God of hosts, was laid, the temple might be built. Interesting, isn't it? The reason that's so interesting, I'm going to tell you this, and to show you even more why this is so interesting. We're going to go to Psalms 119. Picking it up at verse 4. Thou hast commanded us to keep thy precepts diligently. People will say, no, but we need to exegete the scriptures. No, it says keep thy precepts diligently. No, they said exegete the scriptures. Man versus God. It's craziness within itself. 100% craziness within itself. And the reason he's telling us to keep these precepts diligently, because it's a reason for it. But for what we have done, we sit there and we listen to men. We listen to men. And men will tell you stuff that you don't hear, don't see nowhere in scripture, and you'll sit there, okay, yeah, I believe you. And we'll hold right on to it. But the precepts is key. Because he said if you keep them, this is why they don't want you with them. Because in Psalms 119, 104, it says, through thy precepts I get understanding. For that reason, I hate every false way. But they keep you from the precepts because they don't want you to see them. Because if they use them, they're going to be found a liar. They develop all these different types of just conglomerate of stuff. And we believe them. We'll sit there, you have men who same thing like that Henry guy I was telling you, that Henry Stevenson, I'm telling you, they hold the Strong's Concordance pretty much equal to the dang Bible. The Strong's Concordance. They hold it equal. They have it up there with their Bible. Equal to it. Commentaries. All these men theologies and doctrines. This is what people do. And people sit there, and these are false teachers and preachers. And they use these books and tell you all these doctrines and craziness. And like they helping you out. But they giving you a doctrine of somebody else. And we don't think nothing about it. We think, oh yeah, well we learned a lot. We learned a lot. And then had a nerd to come over here. Oh yeah, he running all through the book. He's everywhere. Yeah, because you have to use precepts, a little here, a little there, line upon line. But they'll use different books. And as it says in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 12. And further, by these, my son, be admonished, for the making of many books there is no end. And must study his weariness on the flesh. It's clear as day. It's clear as day. We've seen it in the BlockChain. We've seen even where they've broken up in many different Christian religions. BlockChain consists of books within the Bible, on the Bible, but then what they want to do, they want to tamper with the blocks, and then they create their own books. So they lead, and then what it has, what most people don't understand with the BlockChain, it has this here where it has a fingerprint, a hash, when you change it. When you change it. You can find out. within the blockchain. And when they try to interfere and destroy something, then the blockchain, once it's found out, it shows you that it was tampered with. With that, you'll find out even more so. With that, you'll find more so that where it was tampered with, and you shouldn't, and you can't alter something once it was complete within the chain. Meaning that one has altered the block and others will change the information. So within the block, when you make that change, within any block, the chain is broken. And you remember it starts from the Genesis block. So it links in order to where it has to have an order of precepts which all group together like a tree structure or a branch. And when you look at a branch and you go outside, I want you to pay attention when you look outside and look at trees. When you're walking, just take your time, just look up at the trees. Look up at the trees, just look at the trees. Just do me the favor. Just look at the trees. And why I want you to look at the tree, I want you to look at the branches. I want you to see the branches. Pay attention to them. The reason why is this. Which branch grew first? Interesting question. But it has a logical answer. Which do it matter? The information that contained in that branch cannot be broken unless you take it off the chain. Genesis is the same chain, making it unbreakable. So the information in there is immutable. It's distributed actually across, and why King James did it the way he did it, and they trying to replicate that. And the same thing is what he did. He distributed it as a network, same way like people do on computers. So now the book is distributed throughout the world. Same as blockchain. No one controls the blocks within the chain. Same as the Bible. No one controls the Bible. They patent and everything else on the ESVs, the NIVs, and all those. King James is not. And it's distributed across the network, people. But it can ensure the data that's in the book is unalterable. So if you alter the information in the book, it breaks the chain. So when you try to take that to someone else, the information is different. The information becomes 100% different, and then we come up with another problem. To understand it better, to understand this a little bit better, I'm going to show you something in John. In John, it says something pretty interesting. I want to go to John in chapter 10. And as we go down to verse 35, and we're going to park there. Yeah, I wish I said this. He says, if he called them gods, unto whom the word of God came, including the scripture, cannot be broken. We are in a world of exegesis and hermeneutics versus precepts. Blockchain. And we know the scriptures cannot be broken, so what they did, they altered them and put them in other books and made their own blocks. It's the same as you use cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency, it works in the same way. Cryptocurrency is like parables, riddles, and dark sayings based and used within the blockchain. Most people don't even know that, but you have to put the two together. It's a public ledger. Think about it. Cryptocurrency. Because I'm going to tell you something that most people don't know, but we still need to understand how it works. Because crypto just by itself means hidden. Crypto also, you can use it for secret or hidden. Go look it up. Find out. Hidden. Use an information that compound words. Person which is like having a secret alliance. Each person reveal their own work and paid according to their abilities based on which they fulfill. This is why it's so important. Crypto. But same thing is with the word of God. It's based within a chain that cannot be broken. When you seeing it that way, always remember what he said. And it's always publicly, and it's always out there publicly. This is what you never forget. It's always publicly out there. The reason you're going to see it always publicly out there, because he's going to show you why he does it that way, because it cannot be broken, so it can be out there, but it can be based on precepts, and most people don't understand precepts. You don't understand the parables. You don't understand the hidden messages that's in it. They're going to use exegesis and hermeneutics. But he telling you this here, and we're looking at Luke chapter 8, verse 10. Because unto you is given to know the mysteries of the kingdom of God, but to others in parables. It's in cryptocurrencies. It's in crypto. This is why we get, when you can go in places, you'll see you got lions and tigers and bears. That's why you have people explaining animals came 2 by 2 upon a boat. This is why you have Jesus Christ came in the flesh, but it's the Son of actual God. Why you have angels flying around with wings on their back. Same reason you have Leviathan is this big sea serpent that's over in Europe. The same reason you have a snake was walking on 2 legs and was speaking to the woman. The same reason so many people think they're going to be taken up in the resurrection. To you, it was given to know the mysteries in the kingdom of God, but to others in parables. That sin they might not see. It's crypto. It's hidden. Why? It's embedded in the parable. Hearing, they might not understand. They don't understand. You know how many people come over here and tell me, we don't get what you're talking about. I remember that guy, his name is Michael Williams, but he goes under Michael Israel. Yeah, I can't think of that show he runs a show. He's over there with Charles Dow and them. And they said a thing about me one time. They said, yeah, hey, he talking to spiritual. We don't know what he talking about. And he kind of left me alone right there. Yeah, okay, cool. Doesn't matter. It's not for them to know the mysteries of the kingdom of God. It's that simple. Because the Bible is based on a blockchain that can't be broken. And the same thing is the Bible has to be public, and it has to be publicized throughout the world. Meaning the same thing when we look at it in the regular world is intellectual property rights. So we need to expect the blockchain. And see what was broken. See, blockchain always has been seen, as you see in the Bible books, which is written within prophets. But then the security based on intellectual property rights. It's the network, which is the people, which is the computers. So when you see these things and you can translate the two, saying this. When it's set up that way, no one single person or entity controls the blocks but one. That is God, making it impossible to hack the system. See, the word came down and no word didn't go up. God sent word, the same as the blockchain, and they distributed across to all people. Same as the information was distributed across to all computers. And if we make changes to the chain that a block was already made, the chain breaks. BlockChain is seen to be like Christ, having no single point of failure. Also like a public ledger or organization that no one controls. That's the beautiful thing about this. The books are all written by prophets, and those prophets is no longer here, so that makes it tamper-proof. Meaning you cannot change what that prophet said because he is no longer here. You can go back and question him back on what he said, because he was given to him by the inspiration of God. BlockChain. So when this transaction is made and you try to delete the information that was already recorded, you've already broke the chain. You cannot change, you cannot remove it once it's completed. BlockChain is complete. So we have to understand it. And when you understand it, either you're going to use the precepts or you're going to use the hermeneutics. You use the hermeneutics, it can always be a modified. So it's always false. People can always add data to that and put it in. This is why it's so important to understand what you're looking at. Understand what you're doing. But many people are going to always sit there and they're still going to hold on to the world. No matter what you do, no matter how they do it, no matter what they see. So with that, I hope that with this here, you understood what was going on. Because there's a lot of information that I actually share with you. But if you take the time and really meditate on it, you understood what I was talking about. Because it's very important on what was going on there. Very important on how it was happening. So we just need to understand the blockchain and how it works. This is why it's so important to make sure when you're dealing with what you're dealing with and understanding what you're understanding and learning from what you're learning, you make sure that you learn it and you can see what you're learning. Not where they have to bring up some crazy type of book or some type of theologically thing that's done. It's crazy. This teaching was heavily coded. It was heavily coded, but as the Bible says, for them who have ears, let them hear. Because this has to be done. Has to be. And we sit there and we have done many, many things. But we don't know how important it is to know what's going on. So the same is, we're going to be going back to our regular things. We're going to be doing this afternoon. As I said, we're going to be looking at Fear Not the Sentence of Death. We'll be over there at King James Bible University. We'll be over there where we will be doing doing it there. So we will not be here. We'll be over in King James Bible University web area. We'll be there to where we can move forward on that. And the same, as we said, we'll still be there, and we're going to be looking at, again, I will build my church. We're going to take a close look at Matthew 16:18 in the lie they teach on that. Because it's a big lie that is taught there. So we're going to make sure that you get that one there. And then we're going to be following that up. And as I said, we're going to be coming up with the golden child, and we have blood batteries. We want to make sure that you catch those, because we have a lot of information going to be going out. Some information is coded, some information is not. But we need to make sure we understand exactly what is going on. So with that, I say to each and every person that we have with us, that we continue, that we look forward to what we need to be doing. But you clearly make sure you understand what's going on. Because when you out there and people sit there and they tell you about all these different types of Christian religion, understand where they coming from. They coming from a convoluted place, and that's why you don't know what direction they going. Because they have a lot of information and a lot of crazy stuff. And most of us was there. Didn't know what angle was coming from which way. But when you put it all together, this ain't nothing but a lot of craziness. So with that, I say to each and every person, until later on this afternoon, I say until then, to each and every one, hey, shalom.
I need you.